Some people believe the scariest monsters live in haunted houses or dark forests. But the truth is, the real danger is out here, hiding in plain sight. In your neighborhood, on your street, maybe even standing right behind you. Tonight I'll share 5 real stories, moments where normal days turned into nightmares. And survival came down to quick thinking, a stroke of luck, or pure instinct. The passenger who wasn't there, I drive for a rideshare company at night. Most of my passengers are drunk college kids, tired night shift workers, or people coming home from late flights. It's usually easy money until the night I picked her up. It was around 2:30 in the morning. ID just dropped off a fare, and was thinking about heading home when the app buzzed with a pickup request on the outskirts of town. The pin was in a strange spot, near an old half-abandoned road that used to lead to the highway before they built the new bypass. I almost ignored it, but the pay surge was high, so I accepted. When I got there, the street was dark, lined with overgrown trees. My headlights swept across a figure standing by the side of the road, a young woman in a pale blue dress. She was barefoot, her hair wet like she'd just stepped out of the rain, though it hadn't rained in weeks. She stepped up to the passenger side window. "Are you my driver?" Most musical voice. I nodded, and she slid into the back seat without another word. The car filled with a faint scent of roses, and something else I couldn't quite place. Her destination popped up on my screen, a small house on the far edge of town. As I started driving, I tried to make small talk. "Late night?" I asked. She just smiled faintly in the rearview mirror. You could say that. For most of the ride, she sat perfectly still, staring out the window. I kept glancing at her in the mirror. There was something strange about her. Her skin seemed to pale, her eyes too dark, and the air in the car felt heavier, like I was driving underwater. About halfway there, she spoke again. "Do you know this road?" I glanced around. "We were on Route 6, the old highway." "Yeah," I said. "No one uses it much anymore." Her smile widened just slightly. "Used to." Something in her tone made the hair on my arm stand up. I asked what she meant, but she didn't answer. She just kept looking out the window, her fingers tracing slow circles on the glass. When we reached the address, I turned to tell her we'd arrived, but the back seat was empty. I froze, my heart pounding. The door hadn't opened. I hadn't heard a sound. She was just gone. I sat there for a long moment, trying to figure out what had happened. Then I noticed something in the seat where she'd been sitting, a single damp footprint, shaped like a bare human foot pressed into the fabric. I got out of the car, looking around the street. It was silent. The house in front of me looked abandoned, windows boarded up, grass up to my knees, the front door hanging crooked. I don't know why, but I walked up to the porch. The wood groaned under my weight. There was a faded piece of paper nailed to the door. It was an old newspaper clipping, yellowed with age. The headline read, "Local woman killed in Route 6 hit and run." The date was from 23 years ago. The picture showed the woman I had just picked up, same pale blue dress, same long dark hair. My stomach dropped. Stumbled back to the car and drove away as fast as I could. When I got home, I checked the rideshare app. There was no record of that trip. No pickup, no drop-off, no payment. The next night, curiosity got the better of me. I drove back to the old road where I'd first seen her. I didn't see anyone, but the air smelled faintly of roses, and in my back seat, the damp footprint was still there. I stopped driving nights after that, sometimes though, when I'm on a dark road alone. I checked the rearview mirror, half expecting to see her sitting there, smiling faintly, asking if I know the road. The house at the end of the road. I grew up in a small town where nothing exciting ever happened. Everyone knew everyone, and the streets were quiet most nights. But there was always one place people whispered about: the old house at the end of Miller Road. It wasn't abandoned, exactly. There were lights sometimes, and the lawn was never completely overgrown. But nobody ever saw who lived there. No kids came out to play. No one mowed the grass in daylight, and no one was ever seen leaving or arriving. When I was little, my parents told me to stay away from it. They said the owner was a strange old man who didn't like visitors. But as I got older, the rumors got darker. Kids at school said people went missing near that house. Some swore they'd seen shadows in the windows even when the place was supposed to be empty. Others claimed the house was haunted. I didn't believe most of it, till the night I found out the truth. It happened last summer. My best friend Eli dared me to walk up to the front porch after dark. I didn't want to look scared, so I agreed. We waited until after midnight, when the whole neighborhood was silent. The moonlight made everything look sharper, colder. We crept down Miller Road until we reached the house. Closed, it looked worse. Paint peeling off the walls, shutters hanging loose, and a strange smell in the air. Like old metal and damp earth. Oh, noticed something else too. The front door was slightly open. I whispered to Eli that we should leave, but he grinned and nudged it open farther. It made a long, slow creak that sent shivers down my spine. Inside, it was dark except for a dim yellow light at the end of the hallway. We stepped in, the floorboards groaning under our feet. The first thing I noticed was how cold it was. The summer night outside had been warm, but in here, it felt like winter. The air was heavy, and I could smell something sweet and rotten at the same time. "Hello?" Eli called softly. No answer. We moved toward the light, which seemed to be coming from a room in the back. As we passed the living room, I saw strange things. Piles of old newspapers, stacks of boxes, and jars filled with something I couldn't quite identify. Some looked like dirt. Others looked like hair. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I told Eli again that we should go, but he ignored me and pushed on. We reached the doorway at the end of the hall. On the side was a small kitchen with a single light bulb hanging from the ceiling. In the middle of the room was a table. On it were tools, knives, saws, pliers laid out in perfect rows. Each one was spotless, shining in the dim light. That's when I heard movement above us, slow, heavy footsteps, pacing back and forth. We froze. The sound stopped. Then, with a sudden crash, the footsteps turned into a fast, pounding run straight toward the stairs that led down to where we were standing. Eli's eyes went wide. "Go," he whispered. We bolted for the door, but I could hear someone coming down the stairs fast. I didn't dare look back. My heart pounded as I sprinted down the hallway and burst out into the night air. We didn't stop running until we reached the corner store 2 streets away. We ducked inside, gasping for breath, and hid behind the shelves. I glanced back down the road. The house was dark again, as if nothing had happened. The next day, we told a few friends what happened. One of them told us about a man who used to live there decades ago, a butcher, who disappeared after people in town started going missing. Some said he died. Others believed he was still there, hiding, waiting. I don't know who or what we heard that night. All I know is that I never went near Miller Road again. And sometimes late at night when the wind is still, I swear I can hear faint, heavy footsteps, like someone pacing above me. The night my old friend changed forever a few months ago, I was traveling back to my hometown for a short break from college. I'm a sophomore now, but I still have some old friends from high school. Things with my stepmom had been tense lately, so I didn't want to stay at my dad's house that night. I decided to call an old friend, let's call him Zet, see if I could crash at his place. Z and I were never best friends, but we were pretty close in school. We had orchestra together, shared English class, and would sometimes hang out when I was in town. I knew from social media he still lived nearby. I'd stayed at his house before, so I knew it wouldn't be awkward at least. That's what I thought. When I called, Z sounded more excited than usual. Z was always an upbeat guy, but this was different. It was like he'd just won the lottery or something. He quickly said yes and told me to come over. Even suggested we could get high, watch weird movies, and play video games. His parents weren't home, so he seemed thrilled to have the place to himself. I was tired from the drive, but I figured a little hangout would be fine. Played Smash Brothers, smoked a little weed, and talked for hours. It was fun, but around 2 a.m., things started to feel off. Z began asking me strange questions. At first, they were normal about my boyfriend, my parents, and school. Then, out of nowhere, he asked, "Do you ever wonder what it would be like to kill someone?" I laughed awkwardly, thinking he was joking. But he didn't laugh. He just stared at me, and he asked, "Do you think anyone would miss you if you were gone?" The way he said it made my skin crawl. My instincts told me to go to bed. We said goodnight and went to separate rooms in the basement. He had his bedroom, and I was in the guest room. I have insomnia, so I stayed awake for about an hour. That's when I heard footsteps outside my door. The walls were thin, so I could hear him clearly. The steps went up the stairs to the main floor and came back down quickly. Here's the strange part. Tide never heard the basement door open or close. That door makes a loud creak every time. Also, the light never turned on. What was he doing up there in the dark? By now, my unease was growing. Something about him had been off all night. So I grabbed my phone and started looking him up online. His Facebook and Instagram looked normal. Then I found an old, inactive Twitter account linked to a Tumblr. And that's when my stomach dropped. His Tumblr was filled with disturbing content, graphic drawings of mutilated bodies, both human and animal. There were links to strange, suspicious websites I didn't dare click. There were stories about murder, cannibalism, and torture. I also saw photos of knives, guns, and axes taken in what looked like his bedroom. The most recent post, just a week earlier, said he wished he could find someone easy to kill, like a homeless person. My heart started pounding. Suddenly, all the weird questions he'd asked made sense in the worst way. My mind raced. Was he testing me? Was he planning something? I remembered the footsteps and wondered if he had locked the basement door. I decided I had to get out. I quickly packed my things, thankfully. I'd packed light and noticed a small window high on the wall. I opened it and began climbing through. Just as I was pulling my legs out, the door opened behind me. The streetlight outside lit the scene just enough for me to see him. He was holding something long and thin, probably a knife. We locked eyes. Neither of us said a word. I dropped to the ground outside, ran to my car, and drove straight to my dad's house without looking back. Once I was safe, I blocked him on everything and called the police. I told them about his Tumblr. They said they couldn't do much. His guns were registered to his father and he hadn't actually committed a crime yet. Still, I warned all my old friends to stay away from him. Even now, I get chills thinking about that night. Z had been someone I thought I knew, a friendly, goofy classmate. But in a matter of hours, I saw a completely different side. I realized something terrifying. You can know someone for years, still have no idea what they're truly capable of. When our favorite boss turned into a stranger when I first met Mike, he was the best boss I ever had. He filled in for a few months while my regular manager was on maternity leave. It was fair, funny, and full of energy. He pushed us to work hard, but he also noticed our effort, praised good work, gave clear feedback, and made long shifts feel easy. It was usually me, Mike, and another coworker named James on the same shifts. We joked a lot and got the job done. It felt like a small team that trusted each other. When Mike's time ended, I was actually sad. James was too. Kept in touch with Mike online and sometimes met up. Later, James and I started dating. Mike was thrilled, said we were a perfect match, and told us he was proud of us. When James proposed to me, we even asked Mike to do a reading at our wedding. He said yes and told us how honored he felt. But on the wedding day, he didn't show. We called and called. Right before the ceremony, he finally answered and said he couldn't get out of work. The old Meek, the one we admired, would have called sooner or found a way to show up. We were disappointed, but the day moved on. We tried to let it go. For the next few years, we didn't talk to him much. Still, Mike once wrote me a long, kind recommendation letter for a job. That felt like the old him again. Then one day, he disappeared from social media. His phone number changed. We wondered if he was okay. Out of nowhere, Mike called James from a new number. We put him on speaker. He sounded stressed and asked if he could stay with us for a day or two. My first instinct was to say yes, but James gave me a careful look. He asked Mike what was going on. Mike said he'd been living with his dad, who was very sick. He said he found camera footage of his dad standing over him at night holding a knife. That was shocking. James looked doubtful. He asked why Mike wasn't asking friends or family who lived closer. Mike gave a sad, vague answer about people turning on him. We hung up to talk. Both felt weird about the whole thing. Still, we didn't want to leave him with nowhere to go. When we called him back, he said he didn't have a car, couldn't get an Uber, and had no money he could access. It was late, so we told him we'd pick him up the next morning. He said he'd sleep on a park bench. It felt like pressure, but we stuck with morning. The next day, we drove 2 hours to get him. When I hugged him, he barely reacted. He rode in the front seat, quiet and stiff. Back at our house, he asked to go to the grocery store. James was done driving, so I took him. When I asked how he'd pay, he said he had food stamps. Didn't he match the man we used to know, a guy with a great job and a new car? but I didn't push. At first, we thought he just fell on hard times, but his stories were strange. Everyone in his life had turned on him. Everyone had wronged him. There was always a reason he couldn't work, couldn't drive, couldn't pay, couldn't stay with family. When we asked for details, he gave vague answers. It was never his fault. It was always someone else. 2 nights became a week, then longer. We set some house rules: help with chores, keep the guest room clean. It had some of James's mom's antiques. In return, he could stay while he figured out a plan. We also asked him to help us think through some small business ideas, since he said he was an experienced entrepreneur. He agreed quickly, but then he didn't keep his end of the deal. Rarely did the dishes when he said he would. The guest room turned into a mess of old food. Cups lost in piles of clothes, a tub of melted ice cream sitting on the nightstand for weeks. Meanwhile, the business ideas went nowhere. He always had an excuse. He promised it would all pay off soon, but it never did. At the same time, my marriage was cracking. James was often harsh with me. I tried hard to make him happy, but I felt like I was always failing. Mike noticed the tension, even when we tried to hide it. One day when I was out with Mike on a job, I broke down and told him how much it hurt. He said he'd denoticed James being mean to me and told me I didn't deserve it. He made me promise not to tell James. He said that. Later I found out he told James the opposite, that I was difficult, that I didn't learn fast, that I was the reason our projects weren't working. Told each of us private things the other supposedly said or did. He fed our worst fears about each other. To me, he was caring and supportive. To James, he acted like I was the problem. Played both sides very quietly, very cleverly. Then came another twist. Mike said his father was dying and asked me to drive him to the hospital. On the way, he warned me his dad had dementia and made up wild stories. At the hospital, his dad was alert and talking, even asking for Burger King. He yelled about money and a will. Mike gave me a look like, "See? Right? Dementia?" But something felt off. I didn't know what was true anymore. That same day, James called angry that I'd left the dishes again, the ones Mike promised to do. We fought. He threatened divorce like he often did. I was exhausted and said fine. I couldn't keep living like that. After that, Mike said I could stay at his mom's for a week. I went. He came too. Stayed up with me at night when I cried, but he never made a move on me or anything like that. When I returned later to pick up my things, I learned James and Mike had also fallen out. James finally admitted Mike had been saying cruel things about me behind my back. It clicked. Mike had been splitting us, twisting our words and pushing our buttons to pull us apart. James kicked him out that night. Later, Mike's mother called me. She wasn't surprised by our story. She said carefully that something was wrong with him, and that many of the dramatic events he told people about had no proof. A few days after he left, she texted that he'd been admitted to a psychiatric facility for a long stay. She didn't share details. I went through with a divorce not because of Mike. Mike didn't ruin my life, but he shook it hard enough to make me step back and see clearly, and that, in a strange way, saved me. I still think about the man I first knew, the great boss, the good friend. I don't know which version was real. Maybe both. Maybe neither. But I learned this. Sometimes the scariest people aren't strangers in the dark. Sometimes they're the ones who know exactly what to say to make you doubt yourself, and everyone you love. The delivery shift from hell. I've been working as a food delivery driver for about 8 months. The contract is simple, at least 3 evening shifts a week, 2 of those between Friday and Sunday. I don't really mind evenings. Streets are calmer, the air feels cooler, and if I've got my headphones in with a good playlist or podcast, the hours pass easily. I never work more than 4.5 hours straight. My e-bike battery can last longer, and I still need enough juice to make it home. Most shifts are uneventful, apart from the occasional group of teenagers trying to impress each other by pretending they ordered my food. Creepy, not really. Annoying, sure, that was. Until a Thursday night, a few weeks ago. My shift was 5:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. We're paid per hour here, not per delivery, which means we can't reject orders. If one comes in, we take it. That night, all my orders had been short trips to nice neighborhoods. The weather was cold but bearable. No rain, just clear skies and quiet streets. At 8:15 p.m., an order came in. McDonald's 12 minutes from the drop-off. Not ideal distance-wise, but my battery was still strong. The route was perfect. Nearly all bike lanes. I picked up the food after a 15-minute wait, slid it into my bag, hit play on my playlist, and started pedaling. By the time I reached the address, the street was almost silent. Just the soft hum of my bike tires and the occasional car in the distance. I slowed on the sidewalk, scanning for house numbers, not always easy in the dark. Eventually, I found the right one, locked my bike, and walked to the door. A smiling woman answered. I handed over the food, she thanked me, tipped me, and closed the door. Easy. I went back to my bike, unplugged my phone from the power bank in my pocket. I hate having the wire dangling out when I'm moving, and decided to do it in a nearby alleyway. So I was in T, lingering in front of the house, under a doorbell camera. The alley was narrow, just enough for a person to pass through. I leaned against the wall, tucking away the power bank when I heard it. Slow, deliberate footsteps behind me. I stepped aside, making room. Go ahead, I said, gesturing for whoever it was to pass. But they didn't move. When I looked up, my stomach tightened. A tall, thin woman stood just inches from me, pale skin, long hair hanging to her shoulders. Her eyes were locked on mine, no expression, just emptiness. She was breathing through her mouth, each exhale heavy in the cold air. Brown jeans, blue hoodie pulled up. She didn't blink. Can I help you? I asked. Shh. You have my food, she said flatly. The McDonald's order was already delivered, but I hadn't marked it as completed in the app yet. Still, there was no way she was the customer. No matching address, no order details. I think another driver has your food, I offered politely. Where did you order from? Her stare hardened. No, that was my food. What's your name? What did you order? Can help you get a refund. She stepped closer, her glare sharp enough to cut glass. My food, I need my food. Thinking she might be homeless and hungry, I pulled out a granola bar from my bag. I always keep snacks for long waits between orders. I held it out. She snatched it, almost ripping it from my hand, but didn't leave. Instead, she leaned forward and screamed. A high, blood-curdling shriek that made my skin crawl. I stumbled back onto my bike, pedaling hard. I heard her footsteps pounding behind me. I risked a glance. She was running, holding something shiny. Knife. She lunged, grabbing at my bike, scraping the blade against the wall beside me. I switched to the highest assist mode, burning battery, but flying forward. She screamed after me, "Food thief," and hurled the granola bar at my back. It hit the ground short of me. I didn't slow until I was blocks away, heart hammering, hand shaking. I clicked complete order just to get a new job and somewhere safe to go. The kebab shop owner saw my face and knew something was wrong. He gave me water, food, and even called my company to end my shift early. A coworker escorted me back to the city. I don't know what that woman would have done if she pulled me off my bike. I don't want to know.